What if I told you one of my students manifested 9 lakh rupees with a glass of water? I know it sounds nuts, but this isn't a metaphor and it's definitely not clickbait. This is the incredible but true story of how she did it. And in this video, I'm going to share the exact step-by-step ritual she used. A ritual that she swears made her rich. You're going to want to stick around for this because what we're talking about today is more than just wishful thinking. It's a technique that taps into ancient spiritual practices, brushes up against the very edge of what science is starting to explore, and most importantly, it offers you a real, tangible method you can start using tonight to fundamentally shift the energy in your own life. This is the story of my student, who we'll call Aisha to protect her privacy. And Aisha's story is so powerful, not because it's some magic trick, but because it started from a place I know so many of you watching will understand completely. It started in a place of quiet desperation. Section 1, the student's rock bottom. When Aisha first came to me, she was, in her own words, drowning. Not in water, but in debt, in anxiety, in the crushing pressure of just trying to get by. She had a job that barely paid the bills, lived in a small apartment where the rent seemed to go up every time she blinked, and she was supporting her aging parents. Every single month was a frantic tightrope walk. You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach when an unexpected bill shows up. The mental gymnastics of stretching a few thousand rupees to last 1 month, but getting absolutely nowhere. For Aisha, it was more than just money stress. It had become this heavy gray cloud that followed her everywhere. It strained her relationships. It stole her sleep. She told me she'd lie awake at night, heart pounding, just staring at the ceiling, cycling through the same terrifying thoughts. What if I get sick? What if my parents need more help? What if I lose my job? How will I possibly survive? She felt completely powerless, trapped. She was a good person, a hard worker, someone who did everything right, but her life felt like a punishment. She'd see other people succeeding, traveling, felt like the universe had just forgotten about her, her dreams, starting a small art business, giving her parents a comfortable life, just being able to breathe without that constant financial fear. All felt like they belonged to someone else in a different reality. This is what's called a state of lack. It's not just an empty bank account. It's an emotional and energetic state. It's a vibration of fear, of scarcity, of not enough. And when you're vibrating at that frequency, the law of attraction, the idea that like attracts like, can feel like a cruel joke. Because when all you feel is lack, all the universe seems to send you are more reasons to feel it. Aisha was at her breaking point. She'd tried everything she could think of. She'd worked overtime until she was running on fumes. She tried budgeting apps that just made her feel worse about how little she had. She'd even tried basic manifestation techniques like affirmations. But she told me that saying, "I am wealthy," while her stomach was in knots over an unpaid bill, just felt like lying to herself. The desperation was just too loud. It was during one of our sessions, when she was at her absolute lowest, that I decided to share something with her. A technique that was ancient, incredibly simple, and rooted in an element that makes up over 60% of our bodies and 70% of our planet. An element revered as sacred in almost every culture throughout history. I told her about the power of water. Section 2, a glimmer of hope, the water connection. At first, she just gave me this confused look. Water? How on earth could water solve her problems? It sounded way too simple, maybe even a little silly, and I get it. We live in a world that tells us we need complex solutions for our problems, sophisticated strategies, advanced tech, intricate plans. The idea that the key to unlocking abundance could be sitting in a glass on our nightstand seems almost too good to be true. But I asked her to just hang with me for a minute. I explained that for thousands of years, people have known almost instinctively that water is more than just H2O. It's a symbol and a conduit. In Hinduism, the waters of the Ganges are sacred, believed to wash away sins and purify the soul. In Christianity, baptism uses blessed water for rebirth and spiritual cleansing. Buddhist monks have used water in ceremonies for centuries, infusing it with prayers and intentions intentions. All over the world, water is seen as a medium, a carrier of energy, a bridge between our world and the unseen. This is where we get into some fascinating, and I'll be honest, controversial territory. This is where we talk about the late Japanese author, Masaru Emoto. Now, it is so important to be clear about this. Emoto was not a mainstream scientist, and his work is widely considered pseudoscience. His experiments, where he'd expose water to words, emotions, or music and then freeze it to photograph the ice crystals, weren't done with strict scientific controls. They haven't been successfully replicated by mainstream scientists, who rightly point out his methods were subjective and open to bias. So why even bring him up? Because while the science isn't there, the idea is incredibly powerful. Emoto's photos, which showed beautiful symmetrical crystals from water exposed to words like love and thank you, and ugly chaotic blobs from water exposed to hate and fear, gave us a stunning visual metaphor for what spiritual traditions had been saying for centuries. They gave us a philosophical framework for understanding how our intentions, our words, and our emotions, our vibrations might just affect the physical world around us. Think about it. If our bodies are mostly water, what kind of crystals are we forming inside ourselves when we're constantly filled with fear, anxiety, and self-doubt? What's happening to the very liquid medium of our being when our internal monologue is just, I'm not enough and I'll never get ahead? I explain this to Aisha, not as scientific fact, but as a spiritual concept, a tool for focusing the mind. I suggested she could think of water not as a magical potion, but as a programmable liquid crystal, a blank slate ready to be imprinted with a new message. Fight her own negative thoughts head on, which clearly wasn't working. What if she could outsource the belief? What if she could charge a glass of water with the feeling of abundance, with the vibration of 9 lakhs rupees, and then literally drink that belief? Let it become a part of her, cell by cell. The idea is that when you consciously focus your mind and emotions on a goal and direct that energy into water, the water acts as a vibrational transmitter. When you drink it, you are bypassing your conscious mind's skepticism and delivering that intention straight to your subconscious, to the very cells of your body. It becomes a liquid affirmation. Aisha was skeptical, but she was also desperate enough to try anything. And the logic, even if it was metaphorical, resonated with her. She was tired of the ugly, chaotic patterns her fear was creating in her life. The thought of creating something beautiful and whole, starting with just a glass of water, gave her a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a very long time: hope. Section 3. The science and pseudoscience explained. Before I walk you through the exact ritual, I want to be totally transparent about the why behind this. As I said, the core claim that you can program water to attract money is not supported by mainstream science. As of 2026, there is no accepted scientific evidence for this. However, there are some fascinating threads on the fringes of research that hint at a more complex link between our consciousness and the physical world than we currently understand. One of the most cited examples is a 2006 pilot study by researcher Dean Radin and his colleagues, which involved Masaru Emoto. In this double-blind experiment, about 2,000 people in Tokyo focused positive intentions toward water samples located in a shielded room in California. Ice crystals were later formed from this treated water and from control water that got no intention. When 100 independent judges rated photos of the crystals for beauty, the treated water crystals were rated as significantly more aesthetically pleasing. Now, what does this actually mean? Let's be precise. It was a pilot study published in a journal called Explore, not a top-tier science journal. It suggests a statistical anomaly, an outcome unlikely to be pure chance, but it doesn't prove thoughts change the water. Critics note that beauty is subjective, and the study hasn't been widely replicated or accepted as proof. In fact, a follow-up triple-blind study didn't produce such strong results. So where does that leave us? On one hand, you have ancient spiritual traditions. On the other, you have the controversial but compelling images from Emoto. And then you have a few fringe studies showing small, strange, but statistically significant anomalies we can't fully explain. For me, and for how I teach this, the most powerful and provable part of water manifestation is in the realm of psychology. The real magic of the ritual may not be in changing the water, but in changing you. Think about it. Manifestation rituals are powerful psychological tools. They give us structure and focus. The act of performing a ritual calms the mind and can reduce anxiety by creating a sense of control in a chaotic world. When you consistently do something like this, you are literally training your brain to focus on positive outcomes. It's similar to principles used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, where the goal is to reframe negative thought patterns. The ritual forces you to get clear on your goals, boosts your motivation, and builds your self-esteem. The psychological benefits are real and documented. Focusing on positive outcomes can rewire your brain to handle stress better, and most importantly, open you up to seeing solutions instead of just problems. So when Aisha started her water ritual, was she magically changing the molecular structure of H2O? Science would say no, but what she was definitely doing was changing her own neurology. She was creating a daily habit of focused intention. She was shifting her emotional state from lack to gratitude. She was taking a deliberate, symbolic action that aligned her subconscious mind with her conscious desire. And that, right there, is a profound act of creation. Section 4. The step-by-step ritual, the story-driven tutorial. So here we go. The exact 7-step ritual Aisha followed every single night. And I want you to listen to this, not just as instructions, but as a story of someone taking their power back. This isn't a magic spell. It's a practice of deep intention. Step 1. The preparation, vessel and source. The ritual started before she even poured the water. Aisha chose a special glass to use only for this purpose. It was just a simple, clear glass, but by cleaning it carefully and naming it her abundance glass, she made it sacred. It wasn't just any old cup, it was a tool for transformation. She also chose to use filtered water, thinking of it as starting with the purest medium possible. This is all about intention. The more mindfulness you bring to each step, the more you signal to yourself that this is important. Step 2. Creating the sacred space. Every night before bed, Aisha took 5 minutes to prepare her space. She didn't just do this in a messy kitchen. She'd go to her quiet bedroom, dim the lights, and make sure she wouldn't be disturbed. Sometimes she'd light a candle or some incense. This wasn't for show, it was to shift her own energy. It was a signal to her brain. Okay, the stress of the day is over. We are now entering a sacred time. Creating a ritual space helps quiet the outside world so you can connect with your intention. Step 3. Defining the crystal clear intention. This is maybe the most important step. Aisha didn't just think, I want more money. That's way too vague. The universe loves clarity, so she got super specific. Her goal was 9 lakhs rupees. She took a piece of paper and wrote her intention as if it had already happened. She wrote, I am so happy and grateful that I have now received 9 lakh rupees. This money brings complete financial freedom and security to my life and my family. I am debt-free and my art business is thriving. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Notice the keys. It's present tense. I have received. It's specific, the amount. It includes emotion, happy and grateful, and it connects the money to the why, freedom, family, her business. She would then place the glass of water right on top of that paper. Step 4, the charging of the water. Now for the charging. With the glass on her written intention, Aisha would sit down and place her hands around the glass, not quite touching it, but feeling the energy from her palms beaming toward the water. She'd close her eyes and start to visualize. Wave of relief as she paid off every single debt. She'd imagine the look on her parents' faces when she told them they never had to worry again. She would smell the paint in the art studio she could finally afford. As she held these images, she would speak to the water, whispering her intention statement. Thank you for bringing me this abundance. Thank you for holding this vibration of wealth for me. Thank you for nourishing my body with prosperity. She told me it felt a bit weird at first, but she stuck with it. She worked to really feel the joy, the relief, the freedom. She imagined pouring those feelings from her heart down her arms and right into the water. She would do this for about 5 minutes until she felt a shift inside her, a sense of peace and certainty. Step 5. The mindful consumption. Once she felt the water was charged, she would pick up the glass. Before drinking, she'd hold it for a moment and say one last thank you. Then she'd drink the whole glass, but not just gulping it down. She drank it slowly, mindfully. With every sip, she imagined she was drinking pure abundance. She visualized the energized water flowing through her body, reaching every cell and reprogramming her from lack to wealth. She was literally internalizing the belief she had just created. Step 6. Release and let go. This is the step so many people miss. After drinking the water, Aisha would put her intention paper away in a journal and consciously let it go. She had done her part. Now she had to trust the process. Desperation and constantly checking for results create resistance. They cancel out your work. The art of manifestation is about trust and allowing. Step 7. The power of consistency. Aisha didn't just do this once. She made it a non-negotiable part of her routine. Every single night, she did this 7-step ritual. Some nights, she felt super powerful. Other nights, she was tired, and the old doubts crept back in. But she did it anyway. Consistency is what turns a simple action into a powerful habit. It reinforces the new neural pathways in your brain. Every single repetition is a vote for your new reality. Aisha committed to this process even when she saw no proof in the outside world. Section 5. And then it happened. For the first few weeks on the surface, nothing changed. Aisha kept doing her ritual, going to her same job, dealing with the same stresses. The old voice of doubt would whisper, "See, this is silly. Nothing is happening." But something inside her had changed. She told me she felt calmer. The nightly 5-minute ritual of focusing on gratitude and possibility started to chip away at her anxiety. She was sleeping better. She felt a little less hopeless. This is always the first sign. The internal shift comes before the external one. She had an old portfolio of digital art from years ago, just sitting on a forgotten website, a passion project she'd abandoned when money got too tight. She hadn't thought about it in over a year. One morning, about 6 weeks into her water ritual, she woke up to an email with a subject line that made her heart stop. Urgent inquiry regarding your digital art portfolio. She almost deleted it as spam, but something told her to open it. The email was from a creative director at a new international marketing agency. He'd stumbled on her portfolio through some random chain of links and was blown away by her style. He wrote, "Your work is exactly the fresh, authentic voice we've been searching for. We're launching a major campaign and would be interested in licensing your entire existing portfolio." Aisha was floored. Her hands were shaking. It felt completely unreal. She cautiously replied, and they scheduled a video call for the next day. On the call, the director explained they were a well-funded startup and needed a big collection of visuals fast. Her portfolio of over 50 pieces was perfect. They didn't want new work. They wanted the very art she had poured her heart into and then given up on. At the end of the call, they made her an offer. They wanted to buy the exclusive perpetual license for her entire collection. The price they offered was just over 9 lakh rupees. 9,20,000 rupees. Aisha said she couldn't even speak. She just stared at the number on the contract. It wasn't a lottery win. It wasn't an inheritance. It was money offered for work she had already done, for value she had already created but had forgotten she even had. To her, the connection was instant and undeniable. The ritual hadn't magicked a check out of thin air. The ritual had changed her. The daily practice of focusing on abundance, reducing her anxiety, and believing in her own value had subtly shifted her energy. It raised her vibration from desperate to receptive. This energetic shift, she believes, is what allowed an opportunity that was maybe always out there to finally find its way to her. For Aisha, the cause and effect were crystal clear. The water had delivered the message. Section 6. The aftermath and the real lesson. The moment the money landed in her bank account was, as she put it, an out-of-body experience. She paid off all of her debts in a single afternoon. The mountain of stress she'd been carrying for years just vanished. The silence it left behind was the sound of freedom. She called me crying, not just tears of joy, but tears of a deep, soul-shaking realization. It worked, she kept saying. I can't believe it, but it actually worked. But after the shock wore off, we talked about the real lesson. Yes, the 9 lakhs rupees was life-changing, but the money wasn't the real gift. The real gift was her discovery of her own power. The water ritual was the tool. It was the focusing lens for her intention. But the power didn't come from the water. It came from her. It came from her ability to choose her focus, to cultivate gratitude when things were tough, and to believe in a new reality before she could see it. This experience completely rewired her belief system. She no longer saw herself as a victim of her circumstances, but as the creator of her reality. She understood that manifestation isn't about passively wishing. It's an active process of aligning your thoughts, feelings, and actions. She still does the water ritual, not out of a desperate need for more, but as a nightly practice of gratitude and alignment, a way to keep her inner world tuned to peace and creativity. The money gave her the breathing room to finally quit her soul-crushing job and start the art business she'd always dreamed of. Her story is proof that sometimes the biggest changes come from the simplest practices. Now, I want to hear from you. I know this story might sound crazy to some, and that's okay. But I also know there are people watching who feel a little spark of recognition, a feeling that this is something you need to try. So here is my invitation. Try this for yourself. Commit to the water ritual for just 7 days. Follow the steps with an open heart and mind. Then come back to this video and share what happens in the comments. What did you notice? How did you feel? Did any little synchronicities start popping up? Let's make the comments section our collective journal, a space to share stories, encourage each other, and build a community of conscious creators. Your story could be the one that gives someone else the hope they need. And of course, if this story resonated with you, please give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. We are just scratching the surface of what's possible, and I have so much more to share with you. Aisha's story is a powerful reminder that you are never truly powerless. Even when things feel impossible, you have a creative force inside you that's just waiting to be unleashed. Maybe the secret isn't some complex external solution. Maybe it's about returning to the simple, elemental truths, the power of your focus, the energy of your emotions, and the profound potential held within a simple glass of water. Take this story, take this ritual, and go see what beautiful things you can create in your own life. Thank you for watching.